Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to the Newcastle training ground. Horrible grey, dank day here where we've been inside to watch the Newcastle open training session ahead of the final group in Champions League Group F against AC Milan at St James's Park tomorrow night, and just watched the sort of first 15 minutes of training. I call it training, it wasn't really training really. They essentially came out for a walk, the players, round a couple of the pitches down the back round to the front, had a little stretch, and then those who played on Sunday basically went back inside and left. I think they'll just get told to go home and rest up ahead of the game tomorrow. So I mean, Eddie Howe's been saying for weeks now that the players aren't training, they're just recovering between matches. The only players that are properly training, if you like, are those who didn't play at the weekend, the likes of, you know, Matt Ritchie, Paul Dummett, Lewis Hall, those who didn't start the game or were unused off the bench, a couple of youngsters as well. But you know, all those players who have played and started those last 5 games were essentially just, you know, rested up and told to go home and prepare for AC Milan tomorrow. So look, Newcastle have to do that little open training session as part of UEFA rules and guidelines. I think probably for the players, they probably thought it was probably a bit of a waste of time because it was essentially coming in today to do a little walk and a stretch. But look, the main talking points from the training session this morning, I don't want to make too big a deal of this because we don't actually know yet whether what the news is on these players, but there were 3 notable absentees on top of the expected absentees. So, you know, none of the players who were not involved on Sunday, the likes of Byrne, Botman, Barnes, Murphy, Willock, none of these guys trained with the group, so that suggests to me they won't be involved tomorrow night. But the sort of bigger news on that is that there were 3 more absentees, and you know, I mean, the squad is stretched so thin at the moment. But if some or all of the 3 that I'm about to mention aren't involved tomorrow, I mean, Newcastle can't be any more at the bare bones. So the 3 players that were missing today, which you'll obviously be able to tell by my headline on this, were firstly Anthony Gordon. So no sign of Anthony Gordon, you know, arguably Newcastle's best player this season and most consistent player and real bright spark in recent weeks. He wasn't there this morning. Now that doesn't mean that he's not available tomorrow night. We'll try and find out from Eddie Howe at his news conference later on and try and ask a few questions and find out why he was absent. He could have just been inside getting some treatment. Kieran Trippier was missing from training last week when we were up here, and it was, you know, he played against Everton, then he played against Spurs. He was just inside having some treatment. So that may be the case with Gordon, but obviously we'll try and find out. Also missing was Sean Longstaff, which is obviously, I would say, a bit of a concern given the fact that he came back on Sunday, played the last 20 minutes or so against Spurs. But was not there today. So, you know, again, we'll be asking Eddie Howe if there's any issue there, if there's any reoccurrence, or if he is actually okay and he's just resting. But no Sean Longstaff. And then afterwards, once I look back at the pictures, I could see that there was no Martin Dubravka there either. So Loris Karius and Mark Gillespie were both there, a couple of the younger goalkeepers, but no sign of Martin Dubravka. So again, a question for Eddie. So look, 3 players missing on top of the huge injury list that's already there. And just looking at the session this morning, there were so few players that, God, I think a few of the journalists who'd come over from Milan, my colleagues over at Sky Italy, were looking on asking where the other players were, and I was having to explain to them, well, they're injured. They've got so many players out right now. Callum Wilson was there, of course. He came off the bench against Spurs at the weekend and plays the last 20 minutes, and I would suspect that means that he will be involved against AC Milan tomorrow. And I think good that for Alexander Isak, the fact that they've got the 2 of them there, a bit of a competition, means that they can almost split the 90 minutes between them, maybe play Isak for an hour and then bring on Wilson, or vice versa. But I've just been asked the question on Sky Sports News there during my live, and I still think that Isak will start the game. So look, I know I'm probably leaving more questions than answers here at the moment, but we don't yet know until we speak to Eddie Howe at his news conference at 4 o'clock later. But that was the Newcastle training session, if you'd like to call it today. As I say, a wander around the pitch and then a few stretches. Obviously the likes of Joe Linton, Bruno, Jamal Lascelles, Fabian Schär, Livramento, all these guys there, but no Gordon, no Dubravka and no Sean Longstaff. So yeah, as if Eddie Howe needed any more injury problems, he'll be hoping that, well, the fans should have said, because Eddie will know the situation, but you guys will want to, or be hoping that there's no more, because I think if any of those 3 were to be missing on top of who already is, then it becomes a real problem. So that's it from me just now. I'll have the latest from Eddie Howe's news conference later on this afternoon, where he'll be joined by Callum Wilson. Okay guys, speak to you soon.